I'd like to call to order the June 28, 2011 regular meeting of the Boulder Valley School District Board of Education. Sandy, would you call the roll, please?
Albright.
Here.
Belville. Here. Jones. Myers.
Here.
Reed.
Here.
Roberge.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to remind all who have gathered here today that the mission of the Boulder Valley School District is to graduate students in the new century who have the knowledge, skills, and personal commitments to make this world a safer, more thoughtful, and more inclusive place in which to live. In support of that mission, I would like to begin our first agenda item, the superintendent's report. Dr. King.
Good evening, Mr. President, and tonight I am recognizing two BVSD employees who exemplify what it means to be service-oriented. Will Mary Gordon and Joyce Hammond please join me at the podium? Good evening, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Mary and Joyce were nominated for Superintendent's Honor Roll by BVSD Science Coordinator Sam Messier, who told me that they work tirelessly to supply 33 elementary schools in our district with FOSS kits for teachers to help students learn the BVSD science curriculum. FOSS stands for Full Operational Science System, and Mary and Joyce are the clerical assistants at our district FOSS Science Center here in the Ed Center. Between the two of them, Mary and Joyce manage the scheduling and refurbishment of over 600 FOSS kits and serve more than 500 classrooms. They are also responsible for ordering live organisms and caring for the district's supply of green anoles, which are like little lizards, right? Okay. Joyce and Mary go above and beyond the call of duty to ensure that science materials make it into the hands of elementary students in BVSD. They make emergency deliveries of supplies, stay late for teachers who pick up or drop off live organisms, and come in over the weekend to feed and water the anoles. Motivated by their desire to provide even better service to these schools, these two outstanding employees of BVSD also recently initiated a customer service survey for the FOSS Center, which has helped them to improve procedures. And according to Dr. Messier, Mary and Joyce are unfailingly cheerful and eager to help teachers get the materials that they need to teach science. And for that, we are pleased to honor you this evening, and we thank you very much for your service. I've got a pen and a certificate, and I appreciate you coming in this summer also.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations. And this is my last school board meeting. I did some very rough math and figured since I've been up here at the Ed Center for 10 years, and we have on average 3 board meetings a month for 10 months of the year, that's about 300 school board meetings. I can't remember them all, but they've all shaped who I am and what I'm about. My first job in the district was as a substitute teacher when I was 22 in January of 1985. So that goes back a ways. And if we were able to go back in time and say, you know, who thinks this guy is going to end up being superintendent, I would have been the most shocked in the room, I'm sure. But the time goes by fast, and I'm excited to be moving on, and I'm very thankful and appreciative for everything the board and the community has done for me. BVSD shaped not just me, but my wife and my kids, and thank you for everything.
Chris, I'm going to invade your turf and put you on the spot now, like you've done for countless other people. Um, in one sense, a superintendent must work through the organization that he or she leads. And it's right that the person be recognized for what the organization has done and accomplished. And Dr. King, you've nurtured and led this organization so that it's much stronger than when you assumed leadership. Our buildings have undergone major enhancements. Our financial health is strong despite some very serious financial problems at the state level. We have a very talented and dedicated staff. And most importantly, we have 3 specific and measurable goals that keep us always focused on our students, especially those with the highest needs. But in another sense, a superintendent also brings his or her personal characteristics and beliefs to the job. And there are 2 personal qualities that I think we should recognize and honor. Dr. King, you have always put the needs of students as the primary consideration in any discussion and every decision that we have made as a district. And secondly, you've invested a major part of your personal time and energy in engaging the community in the most important matters facing the district. And in particular, this was true for the financial crisis last year and the budget reductions that resulted from that crisis. You held 13 public budget forums throughout the community, and they were attended by 650 people, where you clearly outlined the problems facing us. You engaged the community in discussing the trade-offs that we were going to have to make. Your budget advisory committee was composed of community and business leaders with experience in finance, management, and budget. And when the final decisions were made on the budget, the community was better prepared to understand and accept them. And I believe that your efforts to communicate the issues to the community and to involve them in the planning were a key component in the important solution to the problem, the successful passage of the 2010 mill levy override. So thank you, Dr. King, for your many years of service to our district, especially the last 4 as our superintendent. Please accept this memento as a symbol of our appreciation. We wish you the best of luck in whatever endeavors you face next.
Thank you, Ken. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Board members, would you like to add anything?
I will. So along with Ken and Helene, I was one of the people that hired Chris, and I can't believe 4 years have already gone by, and we've got another superintendent coming. I'm hoping it's the last superintendent that I will be involved with hiring. He's got big shoes to fill. I would agree with Ken that you always do put children first. There was a wonderful letter in the camera from Jan Hiddleman talking about the affective needs that you have always been an advocate for and bringing that up to people. We hired you in part because we had a large concern with the achievement gap, and you came in and said you wanted to set goals not only for our low achieving kids, but also for all of our children to achieve high. So you set that bar very high, and I know you do that on a personal level for yourself too, and your whole family does. So I want to thank you for your 4 years here. It sounds like you've got some exciting things going on with your family, so I wish you all luck. Soon you'll be out of the state, so good luck with that, and hopefully we'll still be in touch.
Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much, Nessie. Thank you.
Other board? Jenny?
I'll miss working with you, Chris. It's been a pleasure to work with you. I've learned a lot about how the school district runs in my 2 years on the board working with you, and I wish you the best in the future. And thanks for all you've done for our district and our kids.
I'd like to add my thanks too, Chris. You've done such an amazing job of putting kids first. I think one of the keys I've always seen about you is kids were always in the meeting with you. You were always thinking about the kids. How can we serve them better? Always challenging your staff. How can we do better to serve the kids? And I've appreciated that so much. I'd also like to thank you for tying up so many of the loose ends that you had inherited from Mapleton School, Washington, reconstructing Casey, revitalizing our buildings, reinvigorating programs, realigning programs for kids' sake. It has been a pleasure working with you, and we will miss you. Thank you.
Thanks again.
Lori?
Chris, I just wanted to thank you for your time here with the district. I'm kind of amazed it's 300 meetings and you're still standing. But good for you. I don't know if the rest of us could do this, but thank you for your time. Our district, I think, is stronger because of your commitment. I know that there's a lot of faculty and staff who've appreciated your mentorship and your coaching and leadership, and that's valued. And our district is better off, our kids are better off for a result of the teamwork and the efforts you've put together for our district. Please keep in touch, and good luck.
Thanks. Yep.
I want to echo everything that's been said, but particularly for me, it's been a pleasure working with you, Chris. I think that your knowledge and experience that you've brought to the district is invaluable in so many instances that I was personally involved with, and I know throughout the the operation of the district, a great contribution, and you're really going to be missed. I will miss you, and I want to thank you for your service.
Thanks very much. Very appreciative. I'm glad we're streaming these meetings because I can send the link to my mother. She'll be thrilled. It really has been my pleasure, and I couldn't be more thankful for the contributions that the district has made to me. I'm the lucky one here. My wife and kids and myself, we will take a piece of BVSD with us wherever we go. Thanks again.
Thank you. So that concludes the superintendent's report. Plus. The next item on the agenda is the District Accountability Committee report, and I will let the DAC liaison, Jim Reed, introduce this.
Thanks. We got Tegan Sheenan, the chair of DAC, as well as next year's DAC chair, David Sterling. So I think Tegan's got a presentation for us.
I'm going to just sit here and then I'll introduce you. Okay.
And
He snuck in on me. Good evening. You have all received the copies of our various subcommittee reports. So my main job here tonight will just be to kind of give you a brief overview of those summaries and give you an update on the work that was completed this year in DAC. Each year, the board and the District Accountability Committee, we sit down and come up with some shared goals for our subcommittees to work on in our 4 different subcommittees. So I thought I would just go through them by subcommittee, and then if there are any questions for each one, then you can feel free to ask. So for the school improvement process review, which we call SIPR, that's what our subcommittee that looks at the process DAC uses to review the school improvement plans on a yearly basis. And every year we do sort of a self-check, reevaluation, see how that process is working, and what we can do to improve. So this year we spent some time. We did things a little bit differently this year. Instead of having an interview night with the principals and parent representatives, DAC members instead went and visited the schools during one of their school improvement team meetings and provided feedback and some general assistance that way. And at the end of that, we did a survey and tried to find out whether that was a helpful process, whether it was an improvement over interview night, and the general feeling was that principals and school improvement teams found, some found the interview night helpful that we had done in previous years. Some found that the visit was preferable, but there wasn't really a strong indicator. Probably the biggest takeaway we had from that survey was that the feedback that we were providing was perhaps not worth the effort that we were, incurring in terms of, having that many people, volunteers on DAC, spending that much time in the effort, the takeaway was not necessarily valuable. There were a few people who felt that it was, and so to them, we will continue to provide whatever feedback they would like. But that kind of got us thinking about what we could do. Maybe we should look at the process overall. And we looked at what was happening with legislation. We looked at what was happening at the district level, and kind of came to the conclusion that we needed to kind of revamp the whole process. So the recommendation for next year from SIPR is to not only not do those interview night or the visits, but also not review each individual school level improvement plan, but instead focus our energies on reviewing the district level plan and allow the school level teams to provide the feedback on that level. But we will also be hoping to continue the link between the DAC and the school improvement teams by providing any kind of training and whatnot that we can do to facilitate that. So that was sort of a big shift, and so again, we're going to see how that works next year, and I know David has some excellent ideas. And so we also reviewed the district improvement plan as a SIPR, but next year we hope to do that as on a more complete basis. Any questions with the SIPR info?
Jenny?
Yeah, I'm a little curious if each school improvement team will be responsible for reviewing their school's plans. That's how that's going to.
Well, essentially, the way that the school improvement teams should be operating is that the parents and other members of the school improvement team should have input into the creation of. So it won't be necessarily a review of, but assistance in creating, and that the level of involvement will vary from school to school. That process will be encouraged, and then we're hoping that we can provide some oversight into how that process is going at the school level by doing perhaps a survey of our DAC members to see, how that's working.
Is there any kind of training and vision for the members of the individual school improvement teams in that case?
Yes, we're hoping to do a training at the beginning of the school year for the school improvement team members. I'm sorry, I'm calling it the wrong thing. The School Accountability Committee is what we're calling it.
That's my fault. That's what I call it, because
Yeah.
back in the day, that's what.
Yeah, I know. I'm still stuck there. But so yes, there will be some training available for those, and we'll also continue to provide training for the DAC members for that process, so that DAC members can be educated and bring that information back to their school accountability committees, and also be informed reviewers of the district level plan.
And then maybe this is a question for you, Chris. I assume that then staff will continue to have some role in reviewing the individual school plans or goals?
Definitely. I mean, we changed that structure quite a bit this last year with meetings with the principals and the assistant superintendent and me on a quarterly basis. And that really is about reviewing their goals and the progress they're making on it. So I think it'd be up to Bruce to decide how much of that stays the same and how much of it changes. But I know there's a strong interest from the assistant superintendents in continuing that, and that it's been successful.
I'm just concerned that somebody keep that oversight piece,
yeah.
and it doesn't
And
get
that was
dropped.
part of the reason that we shifted our gears a little bit, because there was a much more robust review from the district level that's been established as time has gone on. And so that is really a richer, more educated feedback that can be provided than by our DAC members, who tend to 50% turnover or so per year. And so that provides a little more consistency. Okay. So our other subcommittee, and not all of the discussions will be that long. That was just a lot of discussion went into this particular subcommittee. And then the communications subcommittee, you all received the draft of the School Accountability Committee manual. So this year, the communications subcommittee was developing a School Accountability Committee best practices manual as planned from last year. We decided to, instead of calling it a best practices, to call it just a manual, because that was really a better fit. And it's a fairly lengthy document, but provides all of the requirements. It provides information about all the requirements based on the new legislation, and then also some options for how you might fulfill those requirements as a school improvement or school accountability committee. One item that, one of the reasons that it's a draft, albeit they spent, many hours on this and it's fairly complete, but there is some action needed by the board in order to make this a final document, and that is that the board needs to specify the method for selecting members of school accountability committees and the actual number of members on a school accountability committee. So as it stands right now, the wording in this document is that SAC members are appointed by the principal rather than being elected. But that ultimately is a decision that needs to be made by the school board, and then we will put that information in the final manual. We also need to update. Let's see. There was something else that we needed to update. Bylaws. That's what it was, sorry. The bylaws that were included are out of date, and so we're in process, or will be next year, of updating those. But as it stands, this is our recommendation to the school accountability committees. Questions on that? Okay. And then our budget subcommittee.
Jenny.
Oh, sorry.
I want to say it's great. I mean, I really liked it. I read through it and I thought it was a great manual. A lot of work has gone into it. I don't understand how who's going to take care of the board action that we need to do?
We'll have to bring it back.
Okay. Okay.
Continue.
So we have two more subcommittees. The next one is budget, and the budget subcommittee, along with reviewing the district budget, was asked to develop a better documented and more standardized process for school accountability committee input into school budget processes. So that the documents that we submitted with our budget subcommittee report, the first one lists the recommendations, DAC recommendations for the district budget, and this essentially came down to, because of all the changes with the budget this year, it turned out that the critical piece of information that was needed by the school board and the district from DAC was recommendations on the use of the restorative funds, and that information was already provided and heard, but there's a copy of it submitted as well. And then the rest of that document is a resource for school accountability committees about their school budgets. And this is intended just as a resource for schools to use if they would like to get more information about how to best make their school accountability committees, how to best help them work with the school budget and provide feedback. And so it's not meant to be a requirement, just a resource for ways that could happen. And that's all I have for budget, unless there's questions.
Board members? Lori?
It's not exactly a question, but it's a comment that in your recommendations, you're recommending that these school committees talk about how funds are being spent. And I just want to say that I agree with that recommendation, and I think it's really important that people at the school level understand what's going on in the school and can make some sense for the general community. That sometimes it feels like, oh, the budget is this big esoteric thing out there that's sort of hard to understand. And when you break it down into what those discretionary funds are, it makes a lot of difference. So I thought it was a really good recommendation and really important for our community. So thank you for that.
Sure. Okay, and then our last subcommittee was the Accountable Program Subcommittee, which was this year looking at the use of the 3A mill levy to restore cuts if it passes, and it did pass, but then there were several complicating factors with the budget that created them, having to redo things several times. But they were able to get some information. They did a survey and were able to collect some information about how those funds were used and make some recommendations for going forward. And so the recommendations that this subcommittee made, and I'm going to focus on the last two because I think they're the ones that are perhaps most applicable here. The recommendation was that the district and the school board and the schools themselves should remain sensitive to the high level of community interest in the outcome of the 3A override funds. And we encourage continued budget transparency at the school level as part of the regular budgeting process, with an emphasis on budget priorities instead of specific dollar amounts. And also that the district should continue to provide information to the community, keeping them informed about the process of allocating those funds and the actual disbursements, just as a way of providing some transparency on that. And that is, unless there's questions specifically on that, there's a lot of information that's in the report that kind of details the process they went through. Otherwise, that is all I have. And I would like to introduce David Sterling, who will be replacing me as DAC chair. Come on up, David. I will continue on DAC, but this was my last meeting, my last responsibility as DAC chair. So this is David Sterling, who has been on DAC for
6 years?
6 years, and will be, and has also been on DAC exec, and so I think I'm leaving things in great hands.
Thanks, Tegan.
Yeah.
Thanks for all your hard work.
And that's all I have.
So board members.
I guess just as a wrap-up, I know, reflecting, Dr. King and I spent the first Tuesday of every month with DAC for the better part of 3 hours usually. I've always appreciated the thoughtful approach, the deep reflection on data, which possibly is a reflection of Dr. Ding's, and possibly he's learned it from us. But we have 40 to 50 community members at each of those meetings, all thinking about how we can better improve our schools, how we can approach things positively. I mean, these reports are a reflection of that. This was put together 9 months ago in conjunction with DAC exec, between the board, 4 items of how can we improve the schools, running the gamut. And you guys really took the ball and ran with it this year, and I really appreciated that. And being able to witness some of those conversations, it was, I'm glad to live in this district. And thank you for all your hard work, Tegan. Look forward to working with you, David.
Lori?
Well, I didn't go to any of those meetings, but I have to say that this document is very impressive, and so thank you for putting this together, the entire team of people who worked on it. A lot of detail and yet a lot of big picture stuff. And I just think it's really impressive. DAC has come a long way since the time that I was on it. It wasn't nearly as, I don't know, thoughtful somehow or organized, but it's evolved a lot, and I think you've really focused on what the important issues are. So thank you, and congratulations, and good luck next year.
Thank you.
Tom, did you have anything? Well, I'd like to add my 2 cents and on a couple, oh, I'm sorry, Jenny.
Maybe I'm talking too much tonight. I don't know. I just find this whole process. I love the DAC process. So I found as I was reading it, I was I'm clearly going to have to start coming to meetings because I just think this is great. And I think your report was great. I thought that I just got a lot of good information that you and I could just see that a lot of work had gone into it. I thought that the information you gathered from the schools around budget this year was really great. And one of the things that I also really appreciated was the self-reflective quality of the report. Well, this didn't work so well, so we're going to try something else next year. And I really appreciate that, because that's a lot harder to do sometimes than it sounds. And so thank you, and through you to all the parents who have put in, hours every Tuesday evening, and I know other times as well, to make this process work so well in our district.
And similarly, I would want to thank all the people who put all this time and energy into DAC. I've been involved in DAC in the past. And I have to say that I've watched the sort of evolution of the group and evolution of the processes and the kinds of work that you're doing. And I think that in the 8 years that I've been on the board, this is the highest quality, most coherent, best package of documentation I think I've ever seen from DAC. It's good to see the new state accountability law and how that's kind of come together. Several years ago, there was kind of I remember we went around the table and sort of lamented the fact that not every school had a school improvement team at that time, a SAC now, and concerns about the quality of the guidance that we provide to them. And just the level of the document, the guidelines, and I think it's important that we enforce this in the schools. I think it's important for our community to be involved at the school level, and you have certainly set the stage for that, set a wonderful example, and just all of the work that's gone on, and we've been through a lot of different struggles, really, to sort of understand how best to advise on the budget and how to provide that. And I think we're really zeroing in on some things that are useful. Maybe the quality of the work that you did was because we didn't have to spend as much time doing the school reviews that we did in years past. And if that's the case, then that was a good decision, because I think the other work that your group turned out this year was just really much better. And if that's the reason, then we definitely made the right decision.
We did them both this year, so. We did review the schools this year.
Oh, you did review
Yeah,
this?
but we're just
Oh.
making a suggestion to change that for next year.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Not interview night.
But we didn't have interview.
We
night,
didn't
that's
have interview
right.
night, right.
Okay, all right, I was confused. So anyway, thank you again, great work. I'm looking forward to the work session in the fall. And also I'd like to recognize the work that Jim did as liaison. And you've served for quite a few years now, so it's probably time for some other board members to consider working with this group. I can tell you it is well worth the effort. It is very satisfying. It's a wonderful group. I think, yeah, I heard Jenny volunteer, but if somebody else wants to arm wrestle her for it, that would be okay too. But please do think about it. Chris, do you want to say something?
I think we should acknowledge Jonathan Dings also. Lori mentioned how much the process has transformed in the last few years, and Jonathan gets a lot of the credit for that as well, and he's been behind the scenes facilitating a lot. And so thank you, Jonathan.
And David, I'm so happy that you've stepped up to this role, and I've been very impressed with the work that I've seen you do in the past, and so I know that the organization is in really good hands, and I'm sorry that I'm not going to be around to watch it over the next year. So, but thank you all very much for the effort you put into it. Anything else?
You can come back again.
Yeah, I could be an honorary member. So,
Thank you.
all right, thanks. Okay, do we have any community input? Okay. In that case, we move on to board communication. Board members? Leslie?
Well, I'll just say one thing. Jim and I are thinking about putting together a proposal for the CASB conference. If you recall, Helene and I and Jennifer did a session on our community engagement process, and we're thinking about the next step of community engagement process, using it for the superintendent search. So the deadline has been extended till mid-July, which suits both of our schedules better, but just want to let everyone know that we're contemplating that for this fall. And I just want to wish everyone a great summer break.
Jenny?
I do have a little bit. Okay, first of all, I'm the CASB Legislative Liaison, so I don't know if other people got this email, but I thought I'd let you know that, I'm sorry, I'm making noise. The American Association of School Board I just got an email like last week that the American Association of School Board Administrators and the National School Boards Association have a joint resolution calling for regulatory relief at the, from the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, currently known as No Child Left Behind. And if you're interested, I mean, they recommend, CASB recommends 2 alternative courses of action. One, that the board adopt a resolution, which I understand we wouldn't be able to do till August if we needed to, but the other thing is you can go online on you can go to CASB yourself and sign on, and they're encouraging board members and it's basically just to ask the government to relieve school districts who are suffering under budget crises from, not just us, but nationwide, from some of the regulatory minutia that has been imposed on them by No Child Left Behind. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. And then I'd like to say that even though it is summer vacation, summer school is in session. And I understand from Catalina and Karen Daly that we have 1,100 at-risk elementary students in our summer school program. I believe it goes through middle school. I could be wrong about that. But anyway, so I had the opportunity to go over and visit Emerald Elementary, where students from Superior and Broomfield are attending a really great summer school program that's science-based. So the kids are, they're in summer school, but they're having fun, which I think school should be all year round, but this is even more fun. And many of the kids who are attending are some of our GAP kids, so they're second language learners and special ed kids going to school together. And so not only are the children working on developing their science skills plus reading and writing, but also some of the work I saw going there is like a great lab for our teachers as well, because the teachers in the classroom are co-teaching, which is a model I know we've been trying to roll out in our schools. So it seems to me like that program is not only wonderful for our students, because we know that more time in school is really vital to closing the achievement gap, but it's also a good place for our teachers to acquire some deepening of their effectiveness skills. So I know that this is going on through mid-July, I think, and I urge board members, if they get a chance, to drop into the summer school near them. And you might be more familiar with the programs anyway, Leslie. And then, there was one more thing. I just wanted to comment, sort of a related comment to the report that we just received from DAC, which is, I noticed as I was reading through the great variety of ways that, and the more or less effectiveness that some of our building principals seem to have when they communicate with the public. And so I'd just like to encourage administration to sort of think about that when we're working with our principals, how to build that capacity to communicate with the public, because it was clear to me just from reading through that some of our principals are very effective and some of them are maybe less so, and it's not something you're born knowing how to do. So I think that's just something I hope we'll continue to work on, because in Boulder Valley it's very important that we keep communicating with our public. And so I just like to keep building our capacity at the district and building level. Thank you, that's it.
Lori?
Thank you. Well, I'll continue to talk a little bit about CASB too, I guess. I attended the CASB board meeting 2 weekends ago, and one of the votes we took was in support of the Bright Colorado Initiative, which is the education funding initiative. That's the effort that will raise $2.9 billion over the next 5 years if it's passed. And we are currently in the process of collecting signatures. We'll need about 120,000 signatures by the 1st of August. So we're out collecting signatures and collecting funds to run this campaign. It's real important for us. I think in Boulder Valley, we'll either, if this passes, and if voters vote for it in November, Boulder Valley will receive additional funds through this measure. And the projection is that if it doesn't pass, that there will be additional cuts to K-12. So we'll be either experiencing next year at this time cuts if this doesn't pass, or more money if it does pass. And so it makes it pretty important to us, I think. And people ask me why I'm interested, and I just say, shoot, I'm just really tired of laying people off and cutting programs. And so I think it's an important measure. I was glad to see that CASB passed it. And I think that's it.
Okay. Jim?
So Laura, can we get a proposed or a draft for us to review for the Boulder Valley School?
Yeah. Let's
Maybe
do,
in August?
I'd like to do that in August. I think that's a good idea. Once, here's what the process is. We turn the signatures in on the 1st of August. It'll be, the Secretary of State will determine that there's enough signatures. I mean, if the Secretary of State determines that, then it will be on the ballot. And at that point, it becomes more important to talk to the public about what it means. So we'll know that in about the middle of August. So let's put it on the agenda for then, assuming that a positive outcome, that there's enough signatures turned in. So I would say, yeah, then middle of August, end of August, right when people are coming back to school. It'd be a good time. Thank you.
Jim, anything? Okay. Guess I'll just wish my fellow board members a nice summer vacation. Enjoy your time off. We've had a very eventful and very busy year. We have accomplished a lot as a board. We have worked really, really hard. We have a lot of work ahead of us, but at least for the next few weeks, get out and enjoy the mountains, enjoy the garden, enjoy the family, and enjoy some time of not having to think about our schools. So enjoy your time off, and we'll see you in 4 weeks. With that, I will move on to the next agenda item, which in this case is the board budget. And you've been given the packet of information. I just sort of want to give a high-level narrative, and then if there are any questions, we can talk about those. And then I have something to think about in preparation for next fall. I thought it was useful to go back because over the years that I've been on the board, we have made some, from time to time, we look at the way we do business as a board, and we have tried to improve our efficiency. And probably the most important of that was in 2007, we made a decision to go paperless. We were spending a lot of labor and a lot of time and energy, not to mention trees, in providing all of the information and the agendas and the programs and the documentation that were required by law and required by the board to do a good job. And we invested pretty heavily in that in 2007 with the hope that in the longer term we would be able to cut the cost of doing the board's work. And in fact, that has happened over the next few years. In 2009, we had pretty much realized the full benefit of that, but because we were still a little bit nervous about the technology, we really didn't cut our budget. And so as a result of that, we had a big discrepancy in 2009 between our budget and the money that we actually spent. In 2010, we were able to actually significantly cut back on our budget. And in 2011, we also looked at some additional efficiencies, like eliminating the DLT picnic, not having food in our work sessions, and several other things that enabled us to reduce our budget by about 14%. Unfortunately, when you actually looked at our actuals for this year, two things sort of obscured the savings that we actually achieved through those means. The first was the cost of supporting the Lobato suit. And of course, the other thing that we hadn't anticipated when we set the budget was the superintendent search. So despite all of that, we actually pretty much balanced our budget with our expenditures this year. But had it not been for those two things, we would have probably had about the lowest board expense that we have had historically since 2006. So I think that was all very good. And I think that both Lobato and, of course, the superintendent search was money that we had to spend. And I think we spent that money well. But I think it's important to sort of take the effects of those out when you look at their normal cost of doing business. So that's kind of where we are. And if you have any questions about the details of this, we can answer those now. The one thing I would ask is that in the past, we have carried over, we have sort of set a policy for the board that our professional development budget was carried over from one year to another. And there were some good historical reasons for doing that. But this year, we're now carrying over about $18,000 to next year. So I would say that sometime over the summer, think about that a little bit. Take a look at the professional development costs. Think about your needs as a board member and what you would like to spend for professional development. I think we have always decided as a board that it was very important for all of us together to attend at least the CASB conference. And generally, for new board members, we have encouraged people to attend many of the CASB classrooms for professional development. But at this point, perhaps we should look at that $18,000 worth of carryover and decide whether we really need that or whether we should return some of that to the district. So as we do the revised budget going into the fall, be a good opportunity for us to take a look at our professional development plans. Perhaps we can talk about that a little bit at our retreat and decide whether or not we want to give some of that money back to the district for other purposes. So, any questions or comments? Leslie.
Thank you for doing the historical analysis. I don't think that's been done for quite a while, so that's really useful.
Well, we've never done it since I've been on the board.
Yeah,
so.
so thank you for doing that, and hopefully maybe we'll do that a little bit more regularly in the future.
Well, I would say, you know, part of it is perhaps we should be giving a little bit more thought to things like Lobato and whether we want to set aside some reserves for some things like that, some discretionary funding for the board. So those were all legitimate conversations to have about how the board, part of our job as a board is to decide how we as a board do our business. And so that's probably a good discussion to have at some point, maybe at a work session or at a retreat. Okay, with that we move on to the action items consent grouping. Tonight it consists of personnel items, approval of minutes of the June 14th regular meeting, accept the City of Boulder right-of-way acquisition for property at the intersection of Broadway and Euclid, acceptance of donation, advanced academic services, alternative campus accreditation metrics, approval of a power purchasing agreement to provide BVSD with solar photovoltaic energy, banking services contract, master lease agreement with Bretza, out-of-cycle textbook adoption, recommendation for Lawson hosting agreement, and renewal of the fair contributions intergovernmental agreement with the town of Erie. And I will add that into the personnel items, we have two addenda that are included as part of this consent grouping. So with that, I need a motion to accept the consent grouping. Lori? I'm sorry, Jenny, and seconded by Leslie. All right, does anybody want to pull any of the items from the consent grouping? Does anyone have any questions or concerns, comments about the items on the consent grouping? Lori?
Yeah, I have a comment. I just wanted to thank Roche Company for their $11,000 donation for science fairs. It's one of those great services from our community where they are helpful to kids and teachers in the science fair, so thank you for that. I don't understand all the details about the solar issue that we're just being asked to vote on here today. But I was just curious about, we're hearing a lot right now in the news, at least in Boulder, with municipalization. Is there anything here for us to be concerned about in terms of if Excel is not as involved in Boulder City?
Correct. I
with
mean,
this?
a portion of this business model with power purchasing agreements are they factor in the rebates from Excel and the credits from the federal government in the proposal to this the user group. And my understanding just is that any of those obligations that Excel has within the community would be taken over by Boulder. So it'd be, Boulder would have to obligate themselves to those credits that Excel has extended forth when they take, if they decide to take over municipalization.
Right. Okay, so it's not a negative impact. There's not a potential negative impact for us.
Not for us, no. It'd actually be for the funding groups.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? All right, Sandy, would you, sorry, Jenny?
I have just a quick question. The adoption of the language arts book for the advanced language arts class sounds like a great book. I was a little curious. We continue to offer. I mean, this is not the first time we've offered advanced language arts at a middle school, is it? And don't we have a book? I mean, I was just curious about that.
So, no, yes,
Articulate
we do
question.
have other advanced language arts courses at the middle level. This is a pre-AP course, so we're piloting this at Louisville Middle.
It's not. That's different than an advanced language arts.
Yes, we're still coding it as an advanced LA course, but it's really a pre-AP course, and we're exploring pre-AP curriculum more extensively at the middle level. It's a project we're doing with Peak to Peak, so it's a pilot, and this textbook is not currently approved for middle level use, and so we needed to bring it forward for the board to approve it in order for them to be able to use it at the middle level.
Well, we'll have to chat sometime more about the pilot that we're doing on that. I'd love to know more about it.
Okay.
But for the time.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, anything else? Please call the vote, Sandy.
Albright,
Yes.
Belleville,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Roberge,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay. The last item on our agenda is agenda setting. We have a couple of things that I've picked up on. One is to look at the, what's the official amendment title now? The
It's Initiative 25.
Okay,
or
Initiative
Bright
25.
Colorado.
Some-
Those are kind of the two names that we're using right now. Bright Colorado and Initiative 25.
Okay, so that'll be the middle to end of August?
Yes.
Okay, we'll put that on the agenda.
Thank you.
And then we need to take action on several things with Senate Bill, was it 09193? Is my memory correct on that one? Which is the method of selecting the SAC and the number of members. So we'll put that on our queue for the agenda committee, and we'll schedule that. Anything else that we need to put on the upcoming agendas? Our next agenda meeting will be the first week in August, so. Lori?
Just a question. We had talked about a meeting, a public meeting to encourage people to run for the board.
Yes. We haven't scheduled that yet.
Oh,
but
okay.
Yeah, we're still
Okay.
going to do that. Yes, we are. Just wanted to get through this last meeting, and then I'll have time to work on that. Anything else for agenda? Okay, hearing nothing, I need a motion to adjourn. Somebody? Jim. Seconded by Lori. Hearing no objection, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a good summer.